My name is Lauren, and I just wanted to come on here and share my experience with Molar pregnancy. I know when I went through this about a year ago, um, I had no idea what it was, and I did look up videos and just listen to other people's stories, and it really helped me. So I decided that I wanted to give back and just share my story. If it helps someone, if it makes you just feel like you're not alone, because that's how I felt. Because it's a feeling that I can't really explain, but if you're here, you probably already know what I'm trying to say. So I'll just get right into it. So this happened about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. We found out that I was pregnant. I would say about June, and everything was going fine. And then around August, I guess I must have been I was nearing the end of my first trimester, and I had to be about 10 or 11 weeks. And so one day, just randomly, well, let me go back. I'll first start off by saying I have two other children. At the time, I had a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. So I had two perfectly fine pregnancies and births before then. And so now I'm at this point, expecting my third. And so around maybe like the first or second week in August, I remember exactly, actually it was on the 8th of August, because that was the day that my children started school. And that was a Monday. And that evening, I went to the bathroom and noticed some spotting. And it wasn't a whole lot. It was just a little bit. That's why I say spotting. It wasn't like full on bleeding or anything. And so I did call my doctor or the nurse line, and she told me if it wasn't, if I didn't experience any cramps or anything, and just to monitor it, and if it gets heavier, or if it's like gets brighter or something like that, or if I start to experience the cramps, then I should go to the ER. But just to keep monitoring to make sure, it doesn't get worse or doesn't continue. And so did that, went to bed. The next morning, it was an office day, so I went to work, and I still, in the morning, did notice that there was some spotting. Still, it wasn't a whole lot, and I didn't feel any cramping, and so I just went on about my day. I did have concerns, and I will say, just to be honest, I'm a very spiritual person, and I just, from the beginning, even though I was excited about the pregnancy, I just felt really uneasy and just anxious. I never felt this way with my other pregnancies, and I just thought, I'm older, I have more anxiety now than I did before, so I'm just being anxious, and I just need to relax, pray about it, and stressing about it makes it worse. That's what I was telling myself, and it's the truth. So that morning on the train to work, I'm just felt very uneasy about it. And the whole time that I was pregnant, I was having dreams of miscarrying, and I never had that with my prior pregnancies, and that's also what brought on the anxiety. And am I anxious because I'm having the dreams, or am I having the dreams because I'm so anxious about it? I didn't know. And it was like clockwork. It was just about every few weeks, I would have this very vivid dream of specifically like losing, my child, or and I never had those before. And it was just very disturbing, and it worried me. And so when this started happening, I just kept recalling all of these things, and it's just like, is the Lord trying to tell me that, this isn't going to happen? And my partner, even that night when I started spotting, the next morning, after he woke up, he shared with me that he had a dream, basically, that it was a girl, and long story short, there was a family, trip or something with his family, and everybody was there, even relatives that had passed on, including his grandfather. And everybody's like getting in the car to go on this road trip, and he's calling our child, the one that I'm carrying, and it was a girl in the dream, and he's telling our child, come on, let's go, get out of the car, because the child is in the car with grandpa at this point. He's like, come on, get out of the car, we have to go. And she wouldn't get out, and grandpa said, I'm sorry, son, she has to come with me. And he told me that at this point, and I just felt that it just made it worse. And I'm not upset with him for telling me that. He was just sharing his experience with his person, and I understand that. And so again, still went on with my day. There's really nothing else I can do about it. Just kept monitoring the situation, and maybe in the middle of the day, maybe around 1-2 o'clock, went to the bathroom and noticed like it was more at this time, like it's not stopping. So I called back the nurse's line again, and I just like, it's not stopping. It looks a little more than last time. Still not feeling any cramping. And she's just like, well, you should probably just go to the ER at this point, because it's continuous. And so I did. I just let my team know that I have to leave. And so came home, went straight to the ER that's down the street from my house. It was there. It seems like it was forever, but they took me in. They did an ultrasound, and the ultrasound tech, and it was they call it transvaginal one, because I was still pretty early, still 10 weeks, and that was the first ultrasound that I even had. I had already had at least 1 or 2 doctor's appointments. I can't remember, 1 or 2 doctor's appointments, but at those appointments we didn't even get a heartbeat because I was so early. So at this ultrasound in the ER, the tech, she didn't really say much, and I don't think they can say anything at the ER. So she did the exam or the ultrasound or whatever, and that felt like I was on that table for at least 20-30 minutes. And so she finished that and took me back to the waiting room in the ER, and she said they'll call me when they're ready. And it seems like I was there after that ultrasound. About 15 minutes, they called me, and the ER was actually pretty packed. I really thought that I was going to be there for a while, and in my heart of hearts, I really thought that, this is just something that's happening. It's not going to be serious. They're going to tell me it's okay, because I had no cramping, and I just knew that if I was miscarrying, that I would at least feel some discomfort, anything, just from what I've heard from other people and other experiences in the past. So I'm really sitting in the ER just like, really, I'm worried, but I'm just not. I still have faith that everything was going to be okay. I'm slightly worried because obviously I'm in the ER, but I'm just like, it's a little problem, but it'll be okay in the end, because, that does happen. There is some bleeding during pregnancies, and it turns out to be, not a big deal. But no. So once they called me back, the doctor came in and basically just told me, you're experiencing a molar pregnancy. And I'm just looking at him like, what the heck is that? I'd never heard of it before that moment. And he explained to me that from what it looks like, it looks to be a complete molar pregnancy, but he couldn't confirm that for sure, because there has to be a pathology examination done. But because there's 2 types, obviously there's a complete and then there's a partial. And from what I believe, the complete is that the sperm penetrated an egg that's empty, so it doesn't have any genetic material in it. So I don't really know how to really explain it. Like normally the egg has, the genetics and the DNA, the chromosomes. That's what I'm looking for, the chromosomes. And the egg didn't have any. So once a perfectly fine sperm penetrates with an empty egg, that's a complete molar pregnancy. A partial is, from my understanding, is when a perfectly fine egg is penetrated by 2 sperm, and that creates a partial. And even with partial, molar pregnancy, sometimes there can be a heartbeat, but the pregnancy can't continue because it's not forming properly. So yeah, there was that. There was no heartbeat with mine, and just from the images that the doctor could see, that it was most likely a complete, but he couldn't, confirm that. And so he told me that I would have to be admitted to stay overnight so that they can do a DNC the next day. So I never went home from the hospital. By this time, my kids are this has to be about 10 o'clock at night. So my kids were there along with my partner, and when the doctor told me this information, they weren't in the room, but they went and got them and brought them in. At this time, I'm alone after the doctor left, and they went to go get my family. And of course, I just started crying because I'm so confused. I'm in shock, but all I know is at the end of it all, this pregnancy is over. And I just kind of felt, it's weird to say, I felt duped, because it's like the pregnancy is over, but was it really there in the beginning? Because it never really, from conception, it wasn't the way it was supposed to be. So all this time I fell in love with this person that never was, and it just did something to me mentally. And I was just, it was a lot, and I'm crying, and I'm trying to get it together because I know the kids are coming in. And it's just, I couldn't get it together quick enough. So the kids come in, again, at this time, they're 9 and 7. And my daughter, she's the youngest. She comes in looking at me like, what's wrong? And we just had to explain that, because they already knew that I was expecting. And so, and they were excited, and just pretty much told them. I didn't give them the details, just like, I just said the baby didn't survive. And they were disappointed, but in the thought of that I wasn't coming home tonight, and I was like, I'm going to be here at least a night or two. And they was just, my daughter started crying. I'm crying, or just trying to hold it together. My son, my 9-year-old, he's on the other side of the room, and it broke my heart, but it made me chuckle at the same time, because he's at that age where he's too cool. So he's showing emotion is just that's not it for him. But he couldn't hold it back. And I'm just like, it's okay to cry. He's like, I'm not crying. And oh my God, kids. So that really hurt too. So just add that on to everything. I'm so upset. And then he had to leave. Well, he and the kids had to leave because they had to go home. They couldn't stay. It was getting late. So then my mom came up and stayed with me until I got into an actual room and went to bed, and then she left. And so the next day, the DNC happened, and I actually had to stay maybe a day, until I wasn't released until the day after the DNC, just to make sure all my vitals were fine and everything. And the whole time, those few days that I was in the hospital, it was just a blur. I was in such a fog. It's like I didn't know. I knew what happened, but it's just like that couldn't have happened, because I just couldn't make sense of it. And it wasn't until I got home that everything actually hit. And that's the crazy thing about grief, is like when it's happening, like, when a loved one passes away, when it's happening and you're trying to like get everything in order, like for the final arrangements and the memorials and everything. But the minute everything is done and the final arrangements are done, and now you're just left with your thoughts and the aftermath, that's when everything comes crashing down with your emotions. And that's exactly what happened. And on top of that, my daughter's birthday, I got home, I went to the ER on a Monday night, and I didn't get released until Thursday evening. That next day, on Friday, was my 7-year-old daughter's 8th birthday. So I had to show up for her, even though she went to school. But I always do this, where on my kids' birthdays, I bring cupcakes to the school for them to pass out to the class. So I had to do that. And I needed to go pick up, because I obviously had plans to do all this earlier in the week, but I was in the hospital. We had to go buy her new bike and buy her gifts and everything because I wanted everything to be here when she walked in the door from school. Happy birthday, your balloons, your new bike, your toy, your gifts, and everything like that. So we had to do all that. The day after I came home from the hospital, and it was just, I was on autopilot, and I remember driving in the car. I was my boyfriend was driving. I'm in the passenger seat. He's, just kind of talking. And just the next thing I know, tears just start coming down my eyes. And I didn't even realize I was even thinking about it. It just like hit me, and it just flood of tears. The hormones were out of control. And I was so upset. And it's just hard to even like think about it now. I'm holding it together now, but I was just so upset, and the realization like this is not happening. I'm no longer pregnant. Was I ever even pregnant? I felt like God played a really cruel trick on me, and that's not how we're supposed to think, but that's just honestly how I felt at the time. I've gotten through that. But that's just how I felt at the time. But then I, had to pull it together because I gotta go do the things, and I did. We went and got her gifts, her bike, cupcakes to the school. Everything was as planned for her. 3 days later, my birthday, and I did absolutely nothing. Like the family took me out to eat. My mom came and brought some things over, and I know a good friend of mine, she came and visited me and bought me this beautiful basket with all like spa gift cards and all the scented candles and the wines and the snacks, anything, just something, the things that I needed, and I appreciate that. And you need those types of people in your life, especially for times like this. So I really appreciated that because it was a very difficult time. And just feeling like, why did this happen? I believe that it's just like 1 in every 1,000 women that this happens to. So it's just the constant questioning, like, why me? Why me? How did this happen? Like, is it something I did? Is it hereditary? Is it going to happen again? I know I asked my doctor that, the surgeon, I asked her, and she said it's not likely. But then as I, kept reading and everything, I read that women who have a complete molar pregnancy, whereas it's a faulty egg, once it happens once, it's more likely to happen again to the, same person. And so that was a concern. And so say all that to say, I had to, and the other thing, it's not even just that incident, it's everything that happens afterwards. So with the complete molar pregnancy, there is with the all the ACG levels are really high, and all the tissue that grows, it grows really fast because the egg and the sperm, they combine, and so they start to form all the tissues and grow. But of course the egg is empty, so everything is not forming the way it's supposed to. So it's really just a mass, and it can turn into cancer if you don't get it out soon enough, and if you don't get all of it out. And it could turn to cancer, and it could spread to other parts of your body. So you have to make sure that those HCG levels go all the way down. I think it's below 4 or 5 before you're in the clear, and you have to keep doing that, and they have to stay low for a few months. And so when I was leaving the hospital, like the doctor, she was very adamant about, she gave me a prescription for the birth control patch. She's like, this needs to be the first thing you do, because we cannot get pregnant again, at least not until you're in the clear. Because if you do get pregnant again before you're in the clear and you haven't had those hormones down below 4 for at least a couple months. If you get pregnant before that time, obviously your HCG levels are going to rise, and they can't tell whether it's rising because you're pregnant or because of the tissue or the hormones that were there before. And that could be dangerous, because if those HCG levels do not go down, that means that the tissue is still there, and it can be cancerous, and it can spread to other parts of your body. So just take into consideration all the devastation and then the worry on top of all that. It's a lot for one person to take in a very, very short amount of time. So getting through the main trauma and then having to continue go for blood work. I believe I was going every other week. So, the DNC happened in August. I was going for blood work every other week, every few weeks. I think my last blood draw was in January, this past January. And I'm fortunate enough that all my HCG levels was going down. Even after the DNC, they dropped dramatically. And after every blood draw, they just kept going down, and they stayed down. And so I'm very, very grateful for that. And yeah, I did have to, I did seek out a grief counselor, and, she helped me through some things and just talked about the different stages of grief. And it made a lot of sense, because I felt all the things, the anger, the, just trying to make yourself feel better right away. And it's just, you just going back and forth with all the different emotions. And it could last for a very long time, or it may not. It depends on the person, and just, So, yeah, say all of that to say, if this does help someone, I'm glad. And just to know that you're not alone. You're going to get through it. And I did, join Facebook groups, or a Facebook group. I believe one is called My Molar Pregnancy Support Group. And then there's another one. But, join those groups because they help. But I always remember that, the information you get from them, everybody's different. Just because, something happened for one person doesn't mean that it won't happen or will happen for you or the next person. And I always remember, just don't take any medical advice from those groups. Talk to your doctor, your physician, because they know you best. So always, sorry, I got a phone call. Yes, always consult with your doctor. The groups are for support. They're not for medical advice, obviously. So, and it did help. And just, yeah, you're not alone. And I actually struggle with the thought of even trying again. After she gave me the clear, I'm just like, yeah, whatever, doesn't matter. Well, it matters because I'm healthy. But I had decided that I didn't even want to try again, because that was stressful. So, but yeah, I sit here now pregnant again. And it happened exactly a year later, just like maybe give or take a few weeks. I got pregnant exactly a year later, pretty much. And thankfully, everything is fine. Right now, I am about 15 weeks, 3 days. So I'm in my second trimester. But right when I found out I was pregnant earlier this year, I think I had my first ultrasound at 6 weeks, because I wanted to make sure that we were not having a repeat. Because if so, we had to get it rectified right away. And I did end up going back to the doctor that did my DNC, that did my surgery, because she has experience in it. She knows I feel like she's very informative. Am very comfortable with her. And so since she saw me through that worst time, I felt like I switched to her because she knows all the ins and outs, literally. So that's my girl. So, yeah, just to let you know, anybody who's watching this, if you ever felt like, you went through this and you were concerned about trying again, just know that I would be, one of those stories where I went through it and then was able to get pregnant again and it didn't happen again. At least not this time. So, if there does happen to be a loss with this situation, Lord forbid, it's not because of that. Because you can have a loss at any point for any reason. But, just the thought of that happening again, it's stressful. So just know, don't be afraid. And so I hope this is some inspiration for you. And if you don't want to try again, I understand. And so I understand. I do. And whatever's best for you, do that. Okay? So, yeah. That's my story. And I got through it without crying. Whew, talk about growth. Talk about growth. So, I'll, post some updated videos about how this pregnancy is actually going and, what I went through with the first trimester. So, if you're interested, I'll be posting those videos soon and just come back and see me. Bye.